Slayer! Hi, I'm Tom, and in this video I'll show you how I kitbashed this Cerastus knight into a corrupted chaos knight. And as is the theme with all of my kitbashing videos, you don't need to follow the build instructions. Please let me know what you think of it in the comments, and just so you know, this is the third knight I've kitbashed, and all three of them are going on eBay right now. Just as a sneak peek, here is the first knight, an abominant. It's heavily kitbashed using spare bits from lots of other chaos kits, and a custom head from Tarot Model Maker. The second one is a ruinator, which I made using spare bits and a sacrificial Imperial knight that was broken. I've done videos for both of these if you're interested. And now onto my favourite knight, the Cerastus. Cerastus? Let me know how I'm supposed to say that. I'll be using lots of spare Chaos Knight bits, and also this shield from Tarot Model Maker. I'll also be turning this sword arm into a glaive using the chainsword from the Chaos Knights kit, and also using these spare parts from a chitan. First thing I do with any large project is start at the bottom and work my way to the top. Bloody hell. I built the legs first, and I intended to use one of the chitan's legs, but they are at least 1.5 inches shorter than the Cerastus knight, so this wouldn't work. But I will still use some aspects of it, namely the foot and armour plates. When I started building the Cerastus, I realised this thigh plate on the leg is completely separate. I thought it'd be cool to show the inner workings of the robot as if a panel has fallen off or become damaged. I used this plastic rod to build some structure inside the leg, which will mimic the chassis of the robot. I cut them to size so they'll fit inside the cavity, and did a dry fit. Whenever you're kitbashing, always test before you glue. You'd be surprised how many times things don't fit properly. This is the look I'm going for, sort of like a skeleton inside the robot. I then trimmed off some guitar wire and also some headphone cables, and used tweezers to stick them into place. So I stuck guitar wire either side of the plastic rod to mimic cabling. Honestly, guitar wire is very good for kitbashing. That's it, all built up. So I've got the rod with the two cables either side of it, and then a headphone wire at the top. And then I duplicated this on the other half of the leg. And here's what I mean about ignoring build instructions. The legs are set in place. This little nub here stops you manoeuvring where the leg will bend. So I removed the nub, and you bend it wherever you want. This foot off the chitan fits perfectly into the ball socket as well. When I've got the legs built, I try and work out the pose and the stance of the knight on the base. I'm going to build a rock structure here for the knight to be leaning in that will come down over to the left side. So I built the rock structure using some corkboard, got the leg and the foot pose correct, and built a sort of gaps for the toes of the chitan foot to grip it. And then I used some pink tag to make sure I've got the pose correctly, to hold it in place temporarily while I work out the pose of the legs. So I also noticed here, these little nubbins here are stopping you putting the body where you want it to, so I removed them as well. I also posed the second leg and made sure it was steady as well. Don't want it falling over once it's built. And once I was happy with the layout, I stuck it all together. The resin bit needs to be stuck with super glue as well, because plastic glue won't work. I then also attached the feet onto the non-chitan side, the right leg. And I've put rocks and rubble underneath the right foot, and then bent up the leg plates to look like it's heavy and it's crushed into the earth. This was really fun to do. what I did is I just put the rocks in place first and then attached all the toes and glued them in place. And then afterwards I pinned it in place. I then built the torso just as per the instructions, nothing different here. Same for the top chassis. Honestly, this is one of the coolest and most fun kits I've ever built. I then built the arms, but I didn't glue any of the bits together because I want to be able to position the arm before I glue it. And then on the gun arm, I've not glued these bits together, so it's easier to paint. And again, built per the instructions. This backpack is so cool. Literally 3 drums of ammo, which is the size of a human torso. It's so cool. I then tacked the body in place so I could work out the positioning of the arm. I put the sword arm in place and then worked out how long I'm going to make this glaive. So I've got this chainsword off of the Chaos Knights kit. I want it to be about that long, just off the floor. Drilled a hole to be pinned later. And then I'm trying to work out where I'm going to cut the sword to attach the pin. So this little structure here would be good to keep. It's like a little power source that goes up the blade. Or I could cut it down here. I think I'll have to clean up a bit more there as well, and there might be a big hole. So I'm trimming around the sort of power source coil thing at the top of the hilt. I'm being careful when cutting this up because I might use it on another project. I then sanded down the coil till I found this sort of cavity here, and then I used brass rod to pin it in place. This will add structure and strength. And make sure you cut this with an old pair of clippers. And this back plate, notice here the 2 rods are offline, so they're not intended to line up. The back part of the sword arm is a little bit to the left of the other one. I think that makes it look a bit more robotic and ominous. I then got some more plasticard, glued that around the brass rod just to make it look a bit more structured and strong. The single brass rod looked too flimsy. I stuck the 2 rods in place. It looks so much better with those 2 on. I then used guitar wire into these sort of cavities here from the coil, and then I'll pin another hole in the sword, in the chainsword here, and run cable between the 2. Boopity bobbity boop. There you go, the guitar wire is in place. I then used these headphone wires. I found this really handy for kit bashing, and there's loads of it around. So I've run these into any little holes that on the chainsword that sort of look out of place, just to give it extra cabling. And I'm going for like a Dark Mechanicus feel to these knights, and all the cabling and guitar wire and stuff really adds to that, I think. And look at this treasure, Wilco 39p. I think I bought this when I was like 10. Wilco doesn't even exist anymore. But this is solder, so it's used in electronics, but it's basically just soft wire. It's really good for kit bashing because you can sculpt it around things. What I'm going to use it for is to hold this cable in place against the rods. So I got the position of the headphone first. Wanted it to run alongside this chainsword box. Super glued that bit in place. And this sort of cable, this headphone cable dries instantly on super glue, so it's very quick to do these sort of things. put the solder cable in place around the rods and wrapped it around a few times. In hindsight, I should have done this before putting the guitar wire in place. Wrapped it around the cable till I was happy with where it was, and then I super glued it in place as well. And then the other end I needed to stick in a hole. And I found this sort of random bit here, so I drilled another hole there with my pin vise and put the cable in there. Boopity boopity boop. I also added chain to one end of it because it just looks cool. And that's the finished front end of the glaive. And on the back end here, I found a spare piston from a leg, from a knight leg that I haven't used. Drilled a hole in it and stuck that on the end. It looks pretty cool. There you go, a sort of glaive chain spear. Then onto the head. So I have this spare chitin kit and I love the faceplate, and I was thinking, yeah, this knight head looks too Imperial, doesn't look chaos enough, so let's make it into a demon engine. I have all these spare horns and things from the Chaos Knight kit as well. Working out how to position these. Do I want to put these there instead? And some cabling. And then I decided on the chitin head. I'm just going to cut this sort of frame of the knight head out. Here it looks kind of like an evil duck. I was just thinking you could fill this just with teeth or something. It would look pretty cool. Yeah, there we go. Then I started trimming it, measuring it, and then trimming it and putting it back against the head until it fit back and forth until it was the right fit. You might notice here my left thumb is currently intact, and then it was around this time I basically cut a huge hole in the end and I had to super glue it shut, so be careful. I stuck the horns in place as well underneath, and then I put these I put the headphone cables in as well and sort of led them into the back of the neck, and it looks so cool already. And the reason I'm using this shield is I thought it'd be cool, it just adds to it, it just looks cooler. And it could be used as like a lancer as well as a castigator. But I just did it for rule of cool. So once I had all the bits built, this is where I'm trying to work out the pose of the sword and arms and things. And this is what I decided on. I wanted the glaive pointing down where the knight's staring, with a shield and gun on the far side. And here is all the plates that I used. So I've used the castigator leg plates on the right leg, but it won't fit on the left leg because of how I've posed it. See here, it's because of the bend in it, it won't fit. So I've used the chitin part there. I used the chitin knee plate as well. You might be wondering where I got all these chitin bits. So basically I bought a chitin from Games Workshop, which is a big like demon engine for anyone who doesn't know, and there was bits missing, so they basically gave it me for free, refunded me, and I bought this Cerastus instead, which is nice of them. So for the head I just pinned it with a bit of rod, drilled a hole in the back of the neck, and some holes for the guitar wire which I added, and the headphone wire. And the mask or head, I was sort of going for like a samurai mask Oni feel as well, so quite happy with how it turned out. And then the shoulder pads, so I haven't followed the build instructions here. The one on the right is what it's supposed to look like, and what I've done is, so I just thought the side with the spear is going to want some heavy armour, so I've put extra plates on it. It's also half lancer and half castigator. And then the coolest bit of this kit is this gun belt. It's so awesome. so fun to build as well. Right, and then I'm going to start getting this built. Boobity bobbity boop. So I sprayed all the plates with wraithbone spray, which is like a cream bone colour. And then what I'm going to do is use this gold to do all the trim, and this silver to do some other bits of metal trim as well. I painted some of the joints and cabling black, some of the cables red, painted all the sort of pistons gold, gun belt thing here as well, gun backpack with golden rounds, and the glaive was all painted cabling with red and black, some random bits of blue in there as well. And here's with some of the trim done. So it's just retributed gold, and then a wash of Reichland flesh shade over the top, nice rich gold. And then I've done some silver bits on the top of the chassis as well. And then I realised I hadn't sprayed the chainsword either, so did that. And then onto decals. So I used loads of decals on the other two nights, but this one I wanted to have less. I wanted to have less. But this Cerastus night has these two sheets, and these are dark Mechanicus symbols. So if they're not, they just look awesome. They might be part of that House Malanax, but they just look awesome. So I'm using them and all this scripture. I love the scripture stuff. This is the left shoulder. So applied them with warm water and then some microsol to make sure it's smooth to the surface. And then I'm going to add some oils and grime to it. You'll need to use an old brush. What I do is add a layer of the grime, leave it about 10 minutes to dry, and then I use white spirits and a cotton bud to wick away and remove some of the grime. People ask why I do this, but it leaves behind like a brown dirty film all over the model. It looks awesome. And then what we can do afterwards is just use white spirit to streak that as well. So here's a dry one on the right, and this is what it looks like wet on the left. I then mixed up an oil wash using Abtelung's engine grease. And as the name suggests, this will leave a like brown greasy residue into the recesses. Put that all over the metallics. And here you go for the streaks. I'll show you how I do this with the blue. Same theory for the streak and grime, you can streak it after you've applied it. And then this blue patina or verdigris oil I'm applying with the brush in sort of sporadic areas, and then clean the brush off and just smear it into little streaks. Instant verdigris. I did this over every single armour panel. Mesmerising. A good thing is if you don't like it, you just remove it with the brush. And here on the shield I've done quite a bit of the oil streaks. Then blood for the blood god. So this is a acrylic paint. But once you mix it with a bit of white spirit, it starts to separate and smear. So that's what I've done here. This sword has got a bit of white spirit on. And then I've fed him his nom-noms, blood for the blood god in his mouth. And here's the finished model. I also splattered it. I used a toothbrush to splatter rust and blood over it. And look at this chainsword. Oh yeah. That's badass. I also did some glow effects on the chainsword and the thigh plate that's got the mechanical bits showing. And here you go. I think it came out quite well. Like I said, this is my favourite one to do. If you like the video, let me know in the comments. And if you want to support me further, I have affiliate links in the description below, and I have a Patreon where you get access to my Discord server and see behind the scenes. And thank you to my current Patreon supporters, you absolute legends. And as I said, all 3 of these are going on eBay right now. Get yourself a bargain. Thank you. Bye.